Hi, and you're live and worldwide with the Super Game Bros podcast from RambleMedia.tv. I am your host, Ricky McMillan, and this week I'm joined, as usual, by David Morris, Kevin Murphy, and Danny Black. Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Hello.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
Hi, Ricky.
Hiya. Now, can I just start this week by saying that sadly the video game industry mourns the passing of Satoru Iwata this week as he passed away on Monday. As many of you may know, Mr. Iwata, or should I say Iwata-san, was the CEO of Nintendo, and from what we can gather, Shigeru Miyamoto, as well as Mr. Iwata's right-hand man, Mr. Takeda, are going to be running Nintendo in the meantime. So at this point, I'd like to take a minute or two of silence while we play a tribute to Mr. Iwata for you. And I'd just like to thank YouTuber English Gamer Guy for creating that tribute that we got from YouTube itself. For those of you watching, you'll be able to get that live right now on YouTube. Now, on with the show. This week we're going to be talking about backwards compatibility. Now, as a lot of people know, Phil Spencer announced backwards compatibility at E3. And I know that some of you will have some things to say about backwards compatibility. I know you certainly do, don't you, David?
For sure, yeah. Would you like me to start?
Yes, by all means.
Okay, so I think the first thing to say is that Xbox One gamers, through the Xbox user voice site, have been saying for absolutely ages we want to play 360 games. And the standard line that came back from Xbox time and time again was, it's really very, very difficult. We don't know if we can do it. And it was kept extremely vague. And so when Phil Spencer stood up at the E3 briefing and said, we're doing backwards compatibility, it was completely out of left field. And I think the surprise element, you could definitely feel the reaction watching on the live stream, and I've been talking to one or two people today, including one guy who was actually in the auditorium when it happened, and he's described it as a completely amazing thing, as the place just went berserk. And so if you were to pick one thing to please the Xbox One user base, then this would have been it. And so that for me is like, to have done it, and to have done it in what would appear to be almost complete secrecy, and to then just say, hey, it's working, admittedly just for the preview program, guys. For me, that was like, wow, just a huge, huge surprise. I don't know whether anybody else had any inkling that something like this was happening.
I would like to step in and just say that we got to see about 20, 30 games released for this backwards compatibility so far, with up to 100 coming at a later date. But that's not a lot. They should have backwards compatibility at system level for every game, or they just shouldn't include that at all, because right now it just seems like, yeah, sure, we've got backwards compatibility, hip hip hooray, but the games aren't actually any good that they're offering.
Well, I think there's a couple of things to say about that. Kevin. Firstly, is it's in test just now, effectively by asking preview program members to use that. And so what you've got is a selection of 20 games as the first group of games to be added to that. Now, to add 100 games by the time it goes live, and the date that's being talked about is the fall, so sometime in the autumn. To do that, each game needs to have a digital copy of it ready to roll and to play in the emulator. Now, presumably, we would want them to be working, so they have to be tested against the emulator. And so I don't think coming out with like 100 games at launch with more to be added is necessarily a negative at all. So I'm not sure I would necessarily I agree with that.
I would say though that like we'd be better off just like keeping your Xbox 360 for playing Xbox 360 games and Xbox One for playing Xbox One games, because no point if a new generation is new games, new graphics, moving forwards, not taking a step backwards and having to hold on to the past. Like it's all good to hold on to the past of that, like, but even with like remasters, like they get overdone a little bit, but they're still making the graphics better and new.
I can see what you're
So I
saying.
think there's more to it.
Yeah, I actually understand what you're saying there, Kevin. I take it you're saying that from the point of view of being a games developer yourself.
Yeah, of course, like
Yeah.
new ideas are, well, I wouldn't say new ideas are always better than old ideas because like that would just be absolutely stupid. But
And what about yourself, Daniel? Would you say that this backwards compatibility issue will make developers lazy, or do you think it might actually spur some creative momentum that the video game industry quite possibly sadly lacks at the moment due to the amount of remasters and that sort of thing that we're getting just now?
I am on the fence regards to it, but just take for example, in the last couple of years, there's been loads of remasters. I don't know. I would have to see how it's gonna be first with the general public before I would have an informed decision. Um, Backwards compatibility myself, I have loads of games on the PlayStation that I would love to play on my PS4, so I can get rid of the console itself. So in that regards, yeah, I don't know.
So I think you guys have brought up the very important issue of the remasters. And remasters, I think, on the Xbox are an essential, other than what's planned, now a thing of the past. Because why would you remaster something that you can already play on your Xbox One? Unless it's adding substantial value in the way like the remaster of a Halo 2, for example, did. What I think backwards compatibility does is, one, it lets you get access to the games that you already own, and I think that's a key thing. People are sitting there already owning these games, but you can play them as and when you want. Not everyone is necessarily going to, spend the time or have the capacity to have their 360 hooked up to their telly or plug it in and take it out every time they want to do that. People are working in different situations. But for me, I think it takes away one of the remaining barriers that Xbox 360 console owners have from taking the decision to move up to the next generation. And we know that there is a substantial live Xbox 360 user base because companies like EA are still making versions of FIFA, and you've got things like the next Call of Duty. They're all coming out for last generation consoles because there are still millions and millions of people playing that.
Well,
For
would you
me,
like?
backwards compatibility.
Sorry, David, carry on. You were saying there.
For me, what it does is it removes one of the obstacles from saying, yeah, it's time to change, it's time to move to the current generation of console.
Okay. Well,
I
I
definitely agree
there.
with that. Definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like the whole ideology of like having one console that just does everything and plays every game from like every generation is like the dream that we'll never have, and it's a dream that they could potentially advertise this backwards compatibility because they can't guarantee that this emulator can run every game that everybody owns. It's like they're essentially like, it's still wishful thinking. It's still just a marketing ploy made at evening. until it actually becomes a reality where like every game I own in my Xbox 360 collection can be played in the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would like to add as well, I've heard through the grapevine, I don't know whether it's true or not, but the download sizes for the Xbox 360 onto the Xbox One is quite big compared to, say, digital download onto the Xbox 360. I think it was one of my friends, Will, had told me this, that, say, for example, if it's 10 gigabyte, it'll be 18 gigabyte on the Xbox One if it was 10 gigabyte to begin with, because you're downloading the Xbox 360 console onto the Xbox One to run the Xbox 360 games.
Well, I
So
think we should possibly hear what Phil Spencer has to say in regards to the issue of backwards compatibility. This is Phil Spencer when he done his interview with Giant Bomb at E3 this year, and I believe this was recorded after the backwards compatibility announcement. That's if it'll play, which it's not.
no.
Sorry, folks, we're having technical difficulties here with our playlist. So we shall carry on regardless. Now, would you
Sure.
would you say that
Can I?
Yeah, carry on, David.
Sorry, Ricky. I mean, what I was going to say to Danny is like, I'm certainly I'm in the preview program. I've got a couple of games that are running really quite well using the 360 emulator. It's not my understanding that you're downloading the emulator with every game, but there's a wrapper that needs to go with the game to allow it to play in the emulator. That's why the download sizes are kind of chunky. Mass Effect, for example, which is a game I think a lot of folk would be very happy and pleased to play on the Xbox One. That was about 7.4 gigabytes for me. So,
Hmm.
yes, they are chunky, but when you're talking about new games that are in the order of 30, 40, 50 gigabytes, which seems to be the norm these days, I don't see it as being that much of an issue, but other people might have different opinions on that. I don't see the download thing being significant unless you're dealing with like a narrow pipe, a slow broadband connection, or you've got data caps. That's where it might be a challenge, and I can understand why folks might find that a wee bit
Yeah.
difficult.
No, but my point being is that it's a larger download than it originally was, is what I'm saying. Like, I have no problem with the size of downloads as such. I'm just making the point that it's a
Sure.
bigger download.
I think that's absolutely right, Danny, and I think folks will see that when they go to do it. It's the full game, so if you've got a multi-game installation, I think they're still working through those issues, trying to figure out how they work. For me, we're in the early stages of what is effectively a live beta test of backwards compatibility, and so I would keep an eye on Gamescom as what to see what's happening next on the back compat front.
Well, that's possible. What about yourself, Kevin? Do you think that Gamescom we're going to see some announcements in regards to backwards compatibility, or would you say that maybe E3 was enough and they'll just tell us maybe more games?
I think maybe they'll tell us more games, or maybe they'll give us a firm release date. I think the firm release date would make more sense because Gamescom's the last big gaming event of the year. Like because like after that, like it tends to move away to like smaller events, and like that Microsoft won't really have the execs at. So I imagine that Phil Spencer will probably announce like a release date for about October, November time at Gamescom.
I agree with that. I agree. With that time frame, November, I would say run about the middle of November, just after I believe Battlefront is getting released on the 17th of November, so probably the week after.
Just in time for
I,
the Christmas marketing.
Yes.
yeah, I think it'll either be after Battlefront because that's the last major games release that we've got this year, or it will be before Halo 5. Because from the Halo 5 date, which is in October, through to Battlefront, it's a slew of kind of AAA titles, bang, 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 bang. You probably don't want to muck about too much with your infrastructure and Xbox Live. while those things are happening, that's going to be a major test to see how everything all hangs together. For me, I think it's either going to be pre-October or an early date in October, or it'll be later in November.
And what about yourself, Danny? Would you agree with that? Maybe late October time?
Yeah, I would. Probably early November as well.
So so the general consensus is that sometime in the autumn,
Yes.
backwards compatibility will be released some point between, say, the middle of October and the end of November, which would give most gamers, say, maybe a 5-6 week window in which to prepare for backwards compatibility, specifically Xbox One owners, not so much the PlayStation owners, because I believe that PlayStation Now is their attempt at a form of backwards compatibility. Now, the differences with PlayStation Now and the Xbox backwards compatibility issues are just, to me, they're what makes it.
Well, that was a very good lead-in to the next topic. That's what I've got to say to
Yes.
that.
Well, before we move on to PlayStation Now, I now have Phil Spencer ready to talk. Believe it or not, this is Phil Spencer's talking about backwards compatibility when he was interviewed by Giant Bomb at E3 this year. So here we go.
So apologies, folks. I think we seem to be having some problems with hearing the Phil Spencer interview. We'll just wait for Ricky to join us back, and we'll pick up the conversation.
Yes, David, you're right there. We are having technical issues with Phil Spencer. I have no idea why, to be honest. I have no idea why.
Irony.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the
Videos will
irony
be in
of
the
it.
real thing. Videos will be in the real thing that's released on the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. If you check back in a couple of days, you'll get the full video footage as well as the podcast
No worries.
at ramblemedia.tv. The podcast is also available on Zencast, which is a new podcast and hosting service. And you'll find that there on the main page, and we're also now available and searchable on iTunes. So just pay us a visit there as well. So now with Phil Spencer basically breaking our podcast, I think we should move on now to.
Let's edit this bit out when we release it on the website and iTunes.
Yes. I think maybe we should, except for the advert. Now I think we should move on to PlayStation Now. As I was saying, I believe that PlayStation Now is PlayStation's attempt at backwards compatibility exclusively for the PlayStation 3, and there's a couple of reasons why I'm saying that. The first reason I'm saying that is currently, to the best of my knowledge, it's only PlayStation 3 and PS Vita games that are available on PlayStation now. Number two is the much heralded what I've heard termed as update 3.0 for the PlayStation 4. That allegedly, and I say allegedly because it's completely unconfirmed and may just be rumour, but that will allegedly contain a local disk emulator for PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games. Now, if that's true, it means that the PlayStation 4 as a console will have access to the single largest back catalogue of console games ever. Now, that, and I'm not including anyone who's went and built a Steam console for themselves. I know that Steam consoles can be bought online and from various places for upwards of £900 at the moment. So the Steam console for your casual gamer, for your normal gamer, a Steam console's not the way to go. But with the PlayStation 4, if the local disc emulator is true, then that gives them access to the 2,000 and plus games for the PlayStation 2. Plus, there's a PlayStation 3 emulation or PlayStation 3 streaming service via PlayStation Now. Now, do you think that that will give PlayStation a way of competing with Microsoft, or do you think that Microsoft's backwards compatibility will win that side of the so-called console war?
Well, let's take a look at this from like an analytical point of view. Like you've got two completely different worlds. You've got the PlayStation agenda, which is they're making use of the internet. Like PlayStation Now is going to be run natively on PlayStation 3 systems and the cloud. So you're actually streaming from PlayStation 3 hardware onto your PlayStation 4. That's got the pros of like it won't have the bugs that it could have potentially have every game if all the developers sign up to it. They also have the benefit of it's escaped me, but like one of the big repercussions to that though is that not everybody in Europe has good broadband speeds. But you do have the benefit of like PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation Vita, PSP, they could all have their games added to PS Now at any moment. And also it works on more than just the PS4 and PS3. You can have PlayStation Now on TVs, you can have it on tablets, you can have it on anything that could be controller compatible.
That is very true. I mean, currently, if you go into the PlayStation Store, you can download the Bravia app, which allows you to play PlayStation Now on direct onto Sony Bravia TV. So for any of our listeners, if you've got a Sony Bravia TV but you don't have a PlayStation 3, that might be something for you to consider. Now, what about yourself?
And
David, I was going to say, what about yourself? Do you think that
yeah,
the PlayStation Now is a possible, this is a slap in the face to Microsoft?
I think given that PlayStation Now has been up and running for a while and back compat's still effectively to be properly launched, that it will be interesting to see how the two go toe to toe once it gets up and running. There's a couple of things about PlayStation Now. I mean, the idea of a streaming service and giving you access to a full library of games. In other words, you pay for the service and you can play any game that's in the library. That's reasonably attractive, and it's kind of the Netflix model, isn't it? Pay a subscription and you can watch any content that you like when you like. The caveat, I suppose, is that you have to be online and you need a decent bandwidth to allow that to work. The Microsoft model is, yes, you need to download the content, but once it's downloaded, it's on your console and you can play it. So, for example, like Mass Effect being the example I used earlier on, once it's downloaded, I can play it. I don't need to be online to do that. So that might be a better model in areas where connectivity becomes a problem. Where I find it interesting, and I don't really understand the model properly yet, is the PlayStation Now app, say, on your TV. And it's like, who's that going to attract that isn't currently owning a console just now? And that's not a nobody's going to do that, because I just honestly don't know. I don't know how you control the game, so I presume there's some sort of, you need a PlayStation controller of some kind to be able to use it. But who's going to use that doesn't already have a console? That's the thing that I don't understand. I think it's an interesting idea, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yes, you made the point that escaped me. The like one price and get every game in the library, like that is ideal. I think that could actually have very big mass appeal because there's quite a lot of countries like China and that where games consoles are just taking off, but like they've got really good internet infrastructure. They just don't use it because like censorship laws and stuff like that. So having like something like PlayStation Now go into that country and be available on all the TVs, like on cheap set-top boxes that they make in China, like that's like an instant big win for Sony, like in that market.
Sure. So I mean, I think it's got definite interest. The Microsoft model is, if you've bought the game and you still get the disc or you bought it digitally, you'll be able to play it. If it's in the back compat library, you'll be able to play it. There's no additional fees or anything like that. That's an absolute definite selling point. A lot of people sitting out there with stacks of 360 games or games that they may have bought digitally. You also have to think about the games with gold on the 360. Those games will presumably come to the backwards compatible catalog. So I've been quite busy the last few days trying to get people to download. I say download, it's download in inverted commas. You purchase the license for Gears of War 3 on the 360, and when backwards compatible goes live, I expect that to be one of the titles you'll be able to play. And then you go, there's a AAA game that was out not that long ago, which you'll be able to play for free because it's been given away with games with gold. So there are two models here. There's definitely the subscription model, and you can pick anything that's in the catalog versus you can get what you want. For me, though, when I heard about backwards compatibility, I had traded in my Mass Effect game disc a long time ago. The first thing I did was I went out and bought pre-owned copies of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 so that I'll be able to play that on my console when they come into the catalogue. And for me, it's possibly a real shot in the arm for the pre-owned market. And I think the likes of your retailers like Game will be rubbing their hands at the idea of backwards compatibility when that goes live.
Well, go back to what you said there about the pre-owned market. Danny, I'd like to ask you, when both the PlayStation 4, we know that wasn't announced at E3 2013, but the Xbox One was. Now, when the Xbox One was announced, they were trying to, in a way, get rid of the pre-owned market by introducing digital rights management. You can only use the Kinect. It must be connected to the internet once a day. That sort of thing. Do you think, Danny, that the compatibility, the backwards compatibility for the Xbox One, is a way of, as David pointed out, and quite rightly as well, I think, getting rid of the pre-owned market?
No, not necessarily, because I would like to bring up the point, what if a developer doesn't want to give out that game for the backwards compatibility, because not every company will. They may or may not lose out. We don't know the financial details that Microsoft have for each of these companies. They might want to release a remaster version of it,
Okay. So
they
that's
might
that's a
not.
really interesting point, Dan. But I think the key thing here is that these are games that people already own that bought. And actually, Ricky, what the point I was trying to say about pre-owned is that backwards compatibility will be a shot in the arm for the pre-owned market because people will go out and buy pre-owned games on the 360 because they can play them on their Xbox Ones. Kind of like
Yes.
what I did. I think that for me is probably the key difference. What you've seen effectively is Microsoft stepping away from that launch model of the everything's digital, always connected, must have Connect, to now what is effectively you can use it in any one of a range of different ways.
But the fact of it is that the Xbox 360 games can only play on Xbox One if the developer gives the permission. If they do not give the permission,
Yes,
they cannot play on the Xbox One. So
that's
not
correct.
every
But
game will be able to play.
No, I think that's true. But if any of our listeners are familiar with Xbox User Voice, which is the site where Xbox One users can go and make suggestions about how to develop the console, make suggestions for new features, there is a section there specifically for backwards compatibility. Last time I checked, both Red Dead Redemption and Call of Duty Black Ops 2, I think, had both over 73,000 votes to make them backwards compatible. You're looking at, I think, a PR gaffe, a fairly significant PR gaffe by a publisher who decides not to let stuff be backwards compatible. And you can be pretty sure that Microsoft would have had those conversations before making the announcement, because if the publishing companies weren't going to play ball, what's the point of having a backwards compat library if nobody's going to let you use their games?
Mm. Well,
Because companies want money.
yeah.
That's why.
Can I just bring up a point? What about the likes of Deadpool, which is pulled from the online stores? The game was released and then it was pulled from all the online stores. What about the likes of those games that are released? How are people going to play those? Is how I would. If the company doesn't exist anymore.
I'd like to
Sure.
add,
So,
um,
sure.
like
Go on,
you,
Kevin.
as you said with the pre-owned market, like people go in the game, buy games, and then they'll play them on the Xbox One, even though they're 360 games. Like that game then has a huge responsibility of making sure that all the games in their shelves are marked as being Xbox One compatible if they're 360 games, because otherwise you're gonna get lots of angry and backlash when like people that don't do this sort of research that we do buy Xbox 360 games just off the shelf and try to play them on the Xbox One and realise they don't work.
Yeah, but I think it's a significant marketing opportunity for Game. And what I understand is that the likes of GameStop in the US are absolutely thrilled about backwards compatibility. They've gone on the record as saying they think it's a great thing. They're very happy to support it, and they want to see the publisher supporting it by making the games available for people to play. That's certainly in the US. I think in the UK, a little sticker on that says Xbox One backwards compatible on that, and all of a sudden you've got a whole bunch of games that you can sell probably for the fourth or the fifth time, and that disc has been through a shop. So I see it as an opportunity for the stores rather than necessarily an obstacle.
But wouldn't you say that that's
Definitely.
actually more a snap reaction that will initially happen from, say, between now and when backwards compatibility is launched, and then for, say, anywhere up to 8 months to a year after that? But then after that, there's going to be a dearth because, as Danny rightly pointed out, there are going to be there are many companies that they weren't absorbed by other companies, or they weren't bought over or anything like that. They just with the stock market crash and the financial markets and that sort of thing, they just closed up business. So those games, there's no one to say yes or no. There are people still own the intellectual properties. There are people still own copyrights for game engines or whatever. But still, they have to collectively all be getting together to make that decision for those companies that have closed up shop, that weren't bought over or anything like that. So
Sure.
I believe that the second-hand market will go through a snap reaction between now and, say, next winter, and then after that, you'll see, particularly for the Xbox 360 games, you'll see a massive dearth of games that are basically being put into the bargain basements and the bargain bins in your games, your various high street shops. I don't know if that's a good thing long term. Short term, certainly, it's great. It's great for the gamer. It's great for the shops. Long term, I don't know so much.
Oh, I mean, I think that's beyond the immediate horizon is clearly a very salient question. But I think what you're looking at here is this is pocket money games we're talking about, games that will sell for like a fiver in the shop. As the Xbox 360 ends its natural life cycle, there'll still be an opportunity for those games. I guess we're all crystal balling here a little bit by trying to figure out what's going to happen down the road. For me, I think what you're going to see is this Christmas there will be real opportunities. I also think down the road, I expect to see the Xbox Store to expand to include 360 games that you can purchase digitally. And so the game, maybe the discs no longer existed, but you'll be able to buy a digital copy of it. And I think that's the logical extrapolation of this. That's where I think that's going to go. But we'll just need to wait and see. That's definitely crystal balling on kind of where we think this is going.
And Kevin, I'll give you the last word, being the game developer that you are. Would you say, from the point of view of a games developer, would you say that backwards compatibility is a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I was actually just going to say, like, from a technical standpoint, like, one of the questions I have as a developer is why, like, the PS4, like, if the version 3.00 thing is rumored to be as true as it is rumored, just like the PS3 was before, like, it had any PS1 game could go in, the disc goes in, it can run, it didn't need tested, it was running an emulation, and the emulation was good. Like, so, like, I just have to wonder about, like, how stable Xbox's system must be if they're needing to test each individual game and get license agreements for each individual game to get it to run from the 360 onto the Xbox One.
I think it's a different model. Although the disc goes into the Xbox One, it's just used to validate ownership of the game. You still have to download the digital copy, so it's proving the digital copies work against the emulator and so on. These are different models, absolutely.
Can I also bring up a point? How are they going to stop people that, say, for example, if I can borrow the game from a friend who has it and then pop it into my Xbox One, what's to say that I don't own that game? I can just borrow it and download it for free. What's to
You
stop
can
people doing that?
Your disc still has to be in your Xbox to play the game. So I've tested that. I've tested that already. So the same way as we do just now for physical copies, you'll download a game and then there'll be additional content, what have you. The disc still physically has to be in the drive for you to play the game. So you could, in theory, have digital copies in many places, but unless you've purchased it digitally, the only thing that you can actually do is play it when you've physically got the disc in your Xbox.
Mm-hmm. See, I was in the illusion that you popped your disc in and downloaded it and you didn't need the disc anymore. They didn't
No,
explain that.
the disc still needs to be in the drive, Danny.
Yeah.
Now, funnily enough, the Phil Spencer interview that I was attempting to play earlier on, again, folks, my apologies for the technical issues we've been having. That is a point that Phil Spencer makes. That right there, he does actually come out and say that the disc has to be in the drive for this emulation system that they're using to work. And
it's proof of ownership, Ricky, rather than anything that is software dependent. It just means that you physically got the disc, so it is your game and you can play it.
Well, I think backwards compatibility short term is a really good thing for the gamers. I think it's a really good thing for the shops. The developers, I don't know so much. I think over the upcoming year or so, they're going to find it a bit difficult keeping up with the demand. But I think after a period of a year or so, it's going to taper off into up to a point where the shops aren't really making any money from pre-owned copies of games and what have you, and more games that are going to be coming out, newer games, newer IPs, the developers are going to get lazy. I think there's a chance of that, where they can say, well, we could develop a new game, or we could release these two old games through the backwards compatibility system. I don't know. I'm not a developer, and I wouldn't like to speak for any companies and say I think this company will do it or that company will do it. But do any of you think that that's a possible issue? Making lazy games?
Okay, I'll try and be very quick with this. I think that from the Microsoft model, no, because the developers just need to give approval, or rather the publishers just need to approve it. There's no development work for the developers at all. What I think will happen is that there'll be a move away from remasters, apart from, as I say, exceptional cases, because people will just be able to pick up the game and play them. So that's just to that for me is kind of, I think that's the difference.
And yourself, Danny, what do you think? Do you think that that could be an issue for the, later on, and say maybe a year or so time, the developers have got that lazy, creating backwards compatible versions of their games that, yeah, because I don't see, I'm not saying it's not difficult, and Kevin, you'd be able to tell us better, but I think that from their point of view, making a game backwards compatible is more a subject to the hardware available than the software. So I think that that could be an issue, maybe further down the line for the gamers. I don't know, what do you think about that, Danny? Do you think that backwards compatibility will make some developers lazy and other developers, run like a horse
Take
out of
take the
the
example
table?
of Last of Us. The developers behind that, Naughty Dog, had
Yes.
said that they made the game on the PS4 for the people that hadn't experienced it on the PS3 that moved from Xbox to PS4, which I think is a very clever way of saying it's a cash grab. Um, I think a good lot of remasters and re-releases are cash grabs because they don't actually really add much except for 1080p, 60 FPS.
I would agree with you up to a point. I certainly don't agree with The Last of Us, and I'll tell you why. Myself and RambleMedia.tv's equivalent of J. Jonah Jameson, Will Hamilton, we were discussing this the other week, and one of the things that we discussed about this whole issue was the fact that The Last of Us, particularly The Last of Us and possibly Grand Theft Auto 5, we believe that they were developed on, well, with The Last of Us, we believe that that was developed on the PlayStation 4, and shall we say, I know it's not the correct term, but shall we say reverse engineered to work on the PlayStation 3 to give as many people the experience of The Last of Us. That's why The Last of Us remaster was out so quick. I mean,
Hmm.
it was something like 8 months after the launch of the PlayStation 4. There was The Last of Us, the remaster. I think that they've just waited until the summer, just to catch on the E3 hype.
Yes.
Now I'm a bit cynical in that regard, but I genuinely think that that's what's happened.
You see, I would maybe suggest that the Last of Us isn't effectively a remaster. It's effectively the game being presented as it was meant to be. I think that's what you were
Yeah,
saying,
that's
Ricky.
that's the
Uh,
point. I mean,
Yes.
yeah,
yeah. Whereas if you look at something like the Halo 2 remaster, which was done for the Master Chief Collection, that's a complete redoing of the game. All the cutscenes redone. They were doing motion capture. They were doing a lot of additional work on how to make all that stuff um, a more, if you like, current generation experience. Um, that's a value add in terms of doing a remaster for a game that presumably people want to play. I think the up-res versions of games don't add any appeal to me. And I think what I don't understand, and I don't know whether you might have a view on this, Kevin, is the PS Now stuff. Is there any development required by the publishing companies to allow their games to be there? Um, or is it, if you like, analogous to what Xbox are doing, where Xbox do the work, they create the digital version, and the difference is PS Now streams it, whereas Xbox downloads it to your console once you've purchased it or proved that you've bought the game.
The publisher developers, they don't have to do anything except for sign a piece of paper for the PlayStation Now, because like it's using the software that already exists. They're just putting it into PS3 server editions pretty much, and then they're streaming it
Okay,
to other consoles.
so in a sense, backwards compatibility through PS Now and through the Xbox aren't really diverting developers from their jobs of making new games, because all they need
Definitely.
to do is to consent. So I think, Ricky, if we come back to your question, is will backwards compatibility make um, developers lazy? I don't think so. It might mean that publishers do more, but you've also got things like with Fallout 4. When that comes on the Xbox One, you'll get a digital code to download Fallout 3 and play it as a backwards compatible title. So you've got to see some innovations like that. I think we really need to just let it play out and develop and see how it works.
I would also like to add that, like, I think it was Danny said something about cash grabbing for
Yes.
remastered games. I would actually say that, like, on one hand, it is a cash grab remastered games, but at the same time, like, these publishers are actually paying developers to remaster their old games. So, like, how much money are they actually making from, like, I think, like, Kingdom Hearts HD Remix or Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, when really, like, having backwards compatibility instead is actually saving money because you're not paying a developer to remake your, like, pretty much, like, take your game apart and then, like, updo the graphics and put it all back together. Like, you're just, like,
And
essentially sparking a switch.
what I'm hoping, Kevin, is that it will free up developers to focus on building new games and new content rather than kind of keep looking back and see as to what we had. I think, both the services effectively free up developers to allow them to go and concentrate on building new experiences, and I think that has to be a good thing.
Okay, now, one last thing. So, conclusions about backwards compatibility. Danny, is backwards compatibility a good thing or a bad thing?
Good thing in certain situations.
David,
An unequivocal yes.
Kevin,
Definite, yes.
right. And you've all heard my views. I personally think that maybe long term it's going to be something that holds this generation of gaming back, but that's just me. Now, moving swiftly on. I mentioned earlier on that we've got our very own J. Jonah Jameson here at RambleMedia.tv, and we also currently have a competition for a better access code to the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 multiplayer beta that's launching very soon, and that's available at RambleMedia.tv. Now, J. Jonah Jameson, it leads me straight into the big contentious issue this week, which is going to be Marvel Cinematic Universe versus the, shall we say, the Marvel TV universe. Which one's better? More so, which one can you see this? Can you see Marvel developing more in depth? Now, I know that both Marvel and DC have a number of movies coming out over the next 4 years. I'm not going to go into DC. We're going to leave that for next week. But they also have a number of TV shows coming out now. David, last week you mentioned Agent Carter.
Yes.
So, on your recommendation, I sat down to watch the first episode of Agent Carter. Now, bear in mind that it was extremely late at night and I was extremely tired. But I did sit down and watch it. And I would have to say that I like the way the Marvel TV universe is done probably more than I like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Recently on Netflix there was Daredevil, and I hope you have all seen that because that is one of the best shows I've seen in the last 2 years, with the possible exception of maybe Breaking Bad and The Blacklist. It's definitely up there. I think the TV universe gives them a greater scope to develop their characters.
Yeah.
I think it gives them a greater scope to develop stories within stories. For instance, they announced last week that the Daredevil show on Netflix they're going to introduce the character of Elektra. They've previously announced that in season 2, which is coming up later in the year. They're going to introduce the character of the Punisher as well, Frank Castle. Now, some of these characters, they don't work on the big screen. Look at the early 2000 version of Daredevil starring the next Batman, believe it or not. Going from Daredevil to Batman, that's a big jump. But I think that the TV universe, the Marvel TV universe, is better than the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, I'm not a big fan of Marvel comics, but I've seen the majority of the movies. I think I've not seen Guardians of the Galaxy, and I've not seen the most recent one, Ant-Man. But what about yourselves? Do you think, Danny, that the TV shows, the Marvel TV shows, your Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., your Agent Carter, your Daredevils, that sort of thing, do you think they give the creators a wider scope to tell the full story instead of snippets?
There's
You get
there's two ways to look at this. A movie, you've only maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours to tell a story. TV series, you have a full 6, 7 months, 9 months to tell a story, so you can build it up. Um, so those series can actually end up being longer than a movie, so you have more time to build the characters and stuff. But I actually think personally that Marvel does the cinematic universe better than the TV shows. I would far rather sit down with the likes of Marvel and watch, say, an hour and a half movie than a likes of a TV show. Agents of Shield is probably the exception to that because it follows the Avengers. So I think the cinematic universe is better.
hmm.
I
Uh,
agree as well. Like the pacing, I just prefer the pacing in the cinematic universe than the television, simply because I feel like like in the case of the Avengers, like even though like we'd already had the Captain America movie, I'm not gonna lie, I never watched that. Never was a big fan of Captain America, and you had Iron Man and the Hulk movies all before that. But when it came to actually sitting down, I watched the Avengers movie, and like I learned all the characters, learned the personalities, learned the histories, and also I learned the plot and like what was going on. I managed to follow it right to the end, 2.5 hours or like 2.5 hours. Whereas like with a thing like Daredevil, like it's enjoyable definitely, but like there's a lot of filler just thrown in there just because they're trying to fill the time.
Okay, so I think there's a there's a couple of things worth saying here. Um, First one is in terms of the movies. I think that since probably Captain America, Marvel's got their movies right. They've kind of figured out the right way to deliver the movies, to give the stories a little bit of depth and what have you. Um, my counterpoint to that, though, in terms of the movies, is if you look at the most recent Avengers movie, which was the Age of Ultron, there are so many characters now, you have almost no time to actually spend with the individual characters. So what you get is tiny little cameos from Scarlett Johansson and Robert Downey Jr. and these who effectively get 10 minutes apiece on screen, stitched together, and then a whole series of action sequences. It's not a bad movie, but it doesn't do anything substantive in terms of character and story. I think that's probably the first thing to say in terms of I think they know how to tell a good, entertaining 2 hour story, and they will sell tickets by the bucket to do it. On the
Um,
TV side, no, sorry, I'll go ahead, Danny.
Sorry, I would like to add as well that the TVs, they like Agents of Shield, it fills in where the Marvel Avengers movie series misses out.
Yeah,
It fills in the gaps. Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
sure. So Agents of Shield is certainly complementary and operating in the same universe as the Avengers movies are. I think if you look at the TV stuff, so Daredevil I haven't seen much of, so I can't really comment that much on. Um, if you were to look at Agents of Shield, which has now finished its second season and is now kind of quite mature in terms of who the characters are and what they are. They've taken 2 seasons to take the character of Skye from where she was to where she is now. In a movie, you would have had an hour to do that to tie into an action sequence. Maybe it doesn't work as well. We've seen in this country certainly the first episode of Agent Carter. So Peggy Carter, played by Hayley Atwell, who had the role in the first Captain America movie. We're now in post-war America, and I thought, and Ricky, I'll be interested to hear your view. I thought visually it was gorgeous, it was beautiful, the kind of styling of everything, the art direction of the show. It was very, very immediate post-war America. But you've got what I think's a very talented cast working on that, and from my perspective, I think there's only 6 episodes in the first season, but it's been renewed for a 10 episode second season. So it has definite opportunities, and it's quite different, I think, in terms of the if you like the time it takes place in the Marvel universe. So it is quite different. But here's an opportunity to go and explore with some lesser known characters. I love, for example, that Howard Stark, that's Tony Stark's dad, employed a butler who was called Jarvis. And that's it's not a spoiler alert. That's so Jarvis was his father's butler, and obviously Jarvis then became Stark's AI. So there were some nice nuances and touches. Um, None of that I thought was necessary to allow you to actually go and watch the episode and enjoy it. But if you have those things, it kind of adds a layer of further enjoyment.
I see your point there, especially when it came to the costumes and that. Now, but then when you brought that up, I immediately started thinking of Mad Men, and they've recently cancelled Mad Men, so they may have just went across the block and got the costumes. But that, but that aside, I actually enjoyed Agent Carter. I mean, as I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of the Marvel universe as a whole, the comics. So I didn't even know, who she was. And I recognised her from the Captain America movie, certainly, but I didn't know anything about what kind of character she actually was from the comics or whatever. And it strikes me that she's an extremely strong female representative. Now, David and Danny, you were with me last week in the podcast, and we were talking about female representation in video games. And I think what Marvel are doing is more and more it's coming to the fore that the female characters are, shall we say, as my daughter would put it, strong, sassy, and independent.
Yeah, and I think that you could use those words absolutely to describe Peggy Carter as a character, and I think Haley Atwell just kind of plays that really really nicely. Um, so I think where we have come from in terms of the movie side of things is that I think Marvel in particular have been afraid to hang a movie on a female character. They've done lots of movies about the ensemble cast, and then they've done the individuals on the likes of Iron Man, and then you've also had the Hulk movies. But there's no strong female superhero type lead. Peggy Carter's not a superhero, but she is definitely someone who's talented and got is very different to her time, and I think that makes her extremely watchable.
Would you agree with that, Kevin, or would you say, and not specifically about Peggy Carter, but would you say that Marvel are perhaps, and bear in mind Marvel's parent company is Disney, uh, would you say that they're perhaps scared to hang the jacket on a female lead, like myself and David we discussed last week, along with Danny, about a Black Widow movie? Is that a possibility for the future, do you see?
I could see that happening, yeah. I think it's a very decent possibility. Like, even I think in a roundabout way that it's possible. Like, not like they don't, not so much in like the whole deep inequality way, but more in the sex sells kind of way. I could see Marvel doing a like either a Scarlet Witch or Black Widow movie.
That's interesting because I never even thought of it like that. With Disney being the parent company, I didn't think that would have been an issue. But when I think about it, that could be a possibility because Hollywood's always been, it's been built that way. It was built on the fact that sex sells, and they know this. Danny, would you say that I don't know if you've seen Agent Carter. I'm assuming that you've seen Daredevil. Would you say that certain characters work better on the small screen than they do on the big screen?
Yes, definitely. Take the example of Agent Carter. She's definitely a smaller screen. She's better on the small screen than the big screen, although she has been in Captain America. That's how they introduced her. I still think what they've done with her character is very good. She's more of she's not really a superhero as such as more like uh,
She's a super spy, Danny. That's
yeah,
probably the
like a
way to
spy. Yeah,
describe her.
that's the word I'm trying
Yeah,
to describe. She'd
yeah.
be a super spy rather than a superhero, you know. Um, they've done that right. Yeah, she's definitely a smaller screen character than big cinema, in my opinion.
So would it be fair to say that, say, not so much that they're lesser characters, but would it be fair to say that the characters that are closer to, shall we say, normal humanity, rather than being a meta-human like the Hulk or the upcoming Deadpool movie, or having a special suit like Iron Man or things like that, do you think the characters who are closer to being more human, not on the same level of these superpowered vigilantes or whatever, would you say that those characters would work better on the small screen? Like, for instance, Daredevil. Yes, he has heightened senses and he's blind, but that's it. He
Yeah,
doesn't. He's really good at fighting, but he doesn't have any superpowers. Does he work better on the small screen because he's just a normal guy, or is it is there something lacking within the Daredevil part of the Marvel universe where it's not working, where it wouldn't
I,
work
th-
on
I,
the big
th-
screen?
I don't necessarily think that's true. I think it's all to do with the director that picks the character. Um, because like each director has their own outlook on the character. Like it could work good on the TV, but it could also work good in the movies. It just all depends on the director's outlook or how their direction they want to bring the character.
I think the other thing that you have with a TV series is the opportunity for, as the characters become better defined, the writers can then start to write to that and develop that and expand the characters so that you get to know more about them, you understand their traits and their quirks and their behaviours better, and it all kind of starts to, if you like, expand your knowledge of what you've got. Whereas, you know, it's taken us 3 movies with Iron Man to understand kind of where we are with Tony Stark, and kind of like we don't really understand him. He's a philandering, drunk, multi-billionaire genius who puts on a tin suit. That's kind of him. We don't know much more about him than that, do we? Really? Whereas if you look at Agents of Shield and the Coulson character, the Phil Coulson character, who popped in and out of the Avengers movies, we've explored that character so much more deeply, um, and so there's perhaps a better understanding or knowledge of the character than you would get through a movie. If Agents of Shield was a movie, we'd get those 10-minute cameos for each of the characters, whereas over 2 seasons, you get a much better opportunity to explore and understand them.
Yes, true.
And Kevin, would you agree with that, or would you say that there's something else?
I can't think of anything but ads. I've not really followed like the Marvel TV shows very much, probably because like they don't take my attention span very well. So,
Ah.
but in terms of the movies, yeah.
Okay, well, we're running out of time now, folks, but I think we can say that the Marvel TV versus the Marvel Cinematic Universe debate is one of those contentious issues where some people prefer watching the extension of a character or characters over a series, and some people like the condensed stories and action sequences for the movies. And I don't think that that's the kind of issue that is ever going to be satisfactorily concluded by anyone, unless they make something like Deadpool that kills the entire Marvel universe, which was a great comic series. It's one of the few that I have read. Unless they make something like that, no one will ever actually really come up with a solution to that, I don't feel. I personally prefer the TV shows to the movies, but for me, that's a personal issue. I like watching the characters develop over a period of time,
Hmm.
uh, that sort of thing. But that's all I've got to say about that, as Forrest Gump would say. Now, folks, We'll be back next week, and as I've already said, we're going to be talking about the DC TV shows. Gotham, Flash, Green Arrow, or Arrow as it's called. I get going up against the DC movies. That's just going to be one of the many topics on Super Game Bros last week, which is the official podcast of RambleMedia.tv. Now, please remember to join us on RambleMedia.tv and enter our excellent competition to win a beta code for access to the Black Ops 3 multiplayer beta. And I am Ricky McMillan. I've been joined this week by Danny Black, David Morris, and Kevin Murphy.
Woo.
We are the Super Game Bros. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.